Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports Podcast. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. We are recording this episode on Monday, September 8th, 2025. Coming up on the show, we break down the Chiefs' opening game, a loss to the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chiefs traveled more than 5,000 miles to take it on the chin. After that, I'll have some thoughts on college football and soccer. Let's get started with the Chiefs. We are here today with beat writer Pete Sweeney. Hey, Pete.
Hello.
And the columnists who made the journey to South America, Vahe Gregorian and Sam McDowell. Hello, guys.
Hi, Blair.
Hey, Blair.
Let's get started. So with this question, can you get jet lag if you're traveling in somewhat of the same time zone? I've gotten it going to Asia and back, but how about if you're just going to South America?
Turns out that it's not unique to time zone demands. I will say this, it was a long trip each way, probably 20 some hours door to door each way. But now it's about 24 hours since we got back, and I had a good night of sleep. I don't feel that laggy feeling. I just feel, a little drained. But it's not really how you draw it up. Just like the Chiefs' game plan seemingly wasn't.
It was not how they drew it up, for sure. First loss to the Chargers in 7 games, and first international loss, right? Chiefs had won all their international games, and they are now 10-3 in openers under Andy Reid. All the trends were favoring the Chiefs going into this game, and maybe the trend started to shift on the third play. That was not good, what happened on snap number 3 of the season. What's the latest on the injury to Xavier Worthy?
Well, there was some news over the weekend that it was a dislocated shoulder, coming from a reliable source. And we were able to get Andy Reid on Monday. And predictably, he really didn't say much. He used the dreaded day-to-day description dating back to Eric Ferry, which essentially we know from covering this team means close to nothing. And so
Best of all is when he would say literally day to day.
right.
And really it wasn't.
No, and I think the feeling, and I guess I can throw to Sam here, I think the feeling we're getting is that this is certainly not an injury that is going to allow him to play on Sunday against the Eagles. And I think you wonder about month to month, even though, of course they did say day to day.
I worry as whether or not we're ever going to see Xavier Worthy healthy again this season. I mean, I think there's certainly the anticipation that they'll try and have him use the non-surgical route, but usually even those instances, I think like half the time that these guys re-injured and need surgery anyway. In which case, like you're in week 1, heading into week 2, what are the odds that any of us think that Xavier Worthy is going to be playing in the playoffs this year?
I don't know.
I don't have a feel for it either, but it suddenly reminds me of the scenario that took place with Hollywood Brown, right? Like, even if he gets back, if it's a couple months, let's say, what will be his peak?
Yeah, I mean, Hollywood Brown was at least like, I agree with you that Hollywood Brown missed the rest of training camp, the last 2 preseason games, and, he's playing against guys who are 15 weeks, at least mentally sharp for 15 weeks, even if their bodies have taken a toll that his had not. But he was healthy when he came back.
Yeah, that's true.
I think even if I think that's the biggest takeaway from Xavier Worthy is he actually would have a reason to feel hesitant going over the middle again. And if there's a bright spot about Xavier Worthy's rookie year, it's that he was willing to put his body in more danger than I think any of us expected for a 165-pound guy.
I think what jumps out though too, and I think it needs to be brought up in this, that the micro is Worthy's season. To me, the macro is they just can't get these 3 receivers on the field at the same time.
Yeah.
You had Hollywood Brown and Worthy healthy for this game. You said, okay, I think we were asking, do we think Hollywood Brown's going to make it to week 7 when Rashee Rice comes back? And it ended up being the opposite, where now Worthy gets hurt. Brown presumably is okay. 16 targets in this game by default, really. Ends up catching 10 for 99. And Yeah, I think we've seen one preseason snap from, what would be the quote unquote big three, Rice, Worthy, and Brown. And it's just becoming more and more likely that we never see them on the field together ever, right? Because this is a 1-year deal for Hollywood. You don't know if he's retained. We'll see what Rice looks like when he comes back. And when he does come back, is Worthy even on the field?
Yeah, well,
It's amazing and it's a shame.
yeah.
It is. And of course, Rice is out for the first 6 weeks because of the suspension. I mean, he'll be back. We know he'll be back, but
But doesn't it show you how, I mean, you can think sort of like you're building to a strength, and it just doesn't take much to, obviously we knew that this loomed over Rashee Rice being suspended and that would affect the dynamics, but all it takes is one guy to go down, and now you're in, I don't know what you'd call this mode, but it's certainly somewhere between makeshift and undesirable.
so big negative for the Chiefs early in the game. A lot of other negatives throughout the game that didn't necessarily, result from the Worthy industry. I was quite alarmed at the play of the defense. And I went back and looked.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, there were only 2 new starters this year, right? Tillery started over Nadi at tackle in this game.
You lost Turk Wharton.
Yeah, they lost Turk Wharton, and that's the replacement. And then who's the other?
Safety.
Jalen Hicks started, and they don't have Justin Reed anymore. And the defense played so poorly that Justin Reed took to social media to call off the dogs on the criticism of Jalen Hicks. But
Which wasn't the best indication that he really struggled, actually.
Yeah, it was like former player notice. It's not a good sign.
Confirmation.
Hey, guys, he's going to be okay. Wow, he was really bad.
Right.
Justin Herbert's a really good quarterback. He's had big games against the Chiefs before, but I just wasn't expecting 300-plus yards, 3 touchdowns, and not bothered in the least.
And what he did with his legs.
Yep.
When he needed to. Yeah, go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I think that is, of all the developments in the game, that's the one that's actually most worrisome for the Chiefs' future, because the Chargers had 17 games of 20 games, really, when you include the playoffs, of film of the Chiefs to evaluate their entire scheme defensively, to know their personnel, what's going to come back, and say, what's the best way to attack this team? And they decided a couple things. One, put guys in the slot. They can't defend the slot. And try and isolate, and this is related, try and isolate the Chiefs' safeties and linebackers. Don't worry about their cornerbacks. And Trent McDuffie and even Jalen Watson, their cornerback too. And they just killed Shamari Connor and Nick Bolton the whole game. And Jaden Hicks. He allowed the last 2 touchdowns were on Hicks. One of them doesn't seem like it. The second to last one, because he's so far away at the line of scrimmage that he gets confused by the play. Connor was the nearest defender, and I've gone back and watched all the plays. He was the nearest defender on 6 completions. He was only the nearest target on 6 completions. So 6 for 6 were targeted, and 118.8 rating, which seems like a random number, except for that's the perfect rating you can have without a touchdown. So he gave up perfection, basically, when he was targeted. And there's one play in particular, and I'm leading a column on this tomorrow, where Herbert sees the defense, tells Lad McConkey to come in motion. He stops in the slot, 3rd down and 7 play, just targets him against Shamari Connor. And so I really think after this game, because this is what the Chargers' evaluation was after the season, I think after this game in their own season, the Chiefs, they need to move Trent McDuffie back to the slot, because this is where the Chiefs are going to be targeted all the time. And I mentioned this, the vagueness of this, but specifics of this is the Chiefs had the 2nd most passing yards in the slot last year. And this was not a bad, like, they struggled at times. They were, I think, like 15th in the league against the pass, a little above average. They were terrible against the slot, most first downs in the league. And so this is a spot where I think other teams are, that's why I said, I think overarching what could be the most concerning moving forward, I think that's how other teams are going to attack him too.
What we've talked about so far were the 2 pillars of the loss. To me, the offense, once they lost Worthy, was out of sort from play 3 really to the 3rd quarter. And by the time they figured it out, it almost was they were playing too much catch up. And then just going back to your point, Sam, and you were there, so of course Blair and I have the broadcast view, so you're seeing the whole field. I mean, these receivers for LA were open by steps and 3 or 4 steps. It wasn't these one-on-one balls where the pass catchers were going up and making a play. And I was just concerned about the whole pass defense, which was a little surprising to me because, dating back to the Seahawks game, I think some of us were like, is this run defense good enough here? And they brought in O'Marion Hampton and they felt good about their line. And he had some modest success, but they bottled up the run. But the pass defense was just so poor. And that, to me, losing Worthy followed by just terrible coverage is exactly why the Mahomes magic that we saw some of those plays wasn't enough.
Well, the separation was not like part of your imagination. I mean, that was also something like when you go back and look at Shamari Connor's year last year when they decided they drafted him as a safety in the 4th round.
That's right.
And they played him as a slot corner last year. And he had the 10th highest, he led the 10th most separation in the league on targeted passes. Now, if you're covering a guy, usually you're not going to get the pass coming your way. But rating last year against Shamari Khan, when he was the nearest defender, was 104. Like, this is a consistent thing. And I'm surprised that last year's offseason evaluation did not inform them that Shamari Khan was a better safety than he is a cornerback. And I thought when they had signed Christian Fulton that was the purpose of signing him, is because they agreed. They needed to get better at slot cornerback, and the best way to do that was to get better at outside cornerback and push Trent McDuffie inside. And maybe that still is the long-term goal, but we didn't see much Christian Fulton, just like in training camp. We didn't see much Christian Fulton. There's probably a carryover there. But Andy Reid on the call today basically said, well, it's not just his physical condition. He's still working on the football aspect too.
Based on what you just explained and what you've seen, does it not seem like that's the direction? Maybe this is exactly what you're saying. That's the direction they've got to start trying to cultivate.
Well, that is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah,
They've got to push McDuffie inside, which was something we talked. Trent McDuffie shared that with us without us asking about it in the offseason. Like, he said that he thought he was going to play more slot corner. It was part of his exit interview. It was basically. And instead, he played 11 snaps in the slot out of 65. And that number is directly in line with what we saw from him last year, where he's rarely playing inside, as opposed to 2 years ago. I think Trent McDuffie is the best slot cornerback in football. I think he's a very good outside cornerback, but I think he's the best slot cornerback. Why not lock down? And I think what's worrisome is that was the team to do it against. Like, Ladd McConkey was second in the NFL last year in slot yards. And so, like, if you don't do it against that team, I'm kind of wondering when we're going to see it.
I remember asking Steve Spagnuolo during training camp while Christian Fulton was still on the PUP about how much he was missing. And it feels relevant now because the answer was something to the extent, I don't have the sound like it in front of me or whatever, but the answer was he needs to be out here to learn the defense. And
Yeah.
I think from a physical standpoint, as you mentioned, Sam, by a timeline, like if you have this imaginary timeline, he's still technically within the training camp window when he actually took the field. And then, yeah, if there are concerns about, what maybe he can handle, at a certain point, just considering Connor and how he was in this game, you got to dumb it down a little bit and just put Christian Fulton out there. And that way you can use Trent McDuffie in the slot.
And didn't Dave Merritt also tell us that that was the easiest position to learn, basically? He's like, I'm not asking you guys to have
Multiple
Yes.
position. That's right. No, you did say that. And listen, there is an element of, there was no pass rush.
Yeah, that goes on.
Justin Herbert he could have done his taxes back there. I mean, he had so much time to throw, and it wasn't until they blitzed and brought Drew Tranquil in, on a blitz. They finally got him down. And Tranquil ended up with a couple of sacks. They gave Karlaftis credit for a sack too, and I couldn't remember.
I think it was Herbert was running and he tackled him on the line. I think that's how it went, right?
Technicality, Alma, yeah.
But he's on the board.
Yeah. But you made me think of this, Blair. Just like Gelati looked pretty good, but played limited snaps.
Yeah, he looked good.
Nice snaps, yeah.
And and it was it not his first series, the one down at the goal line where he immediately broke through and almost had a safety. And I don't know why they didn't play him more. Also, I mean, you guys perhaps saw it with a more discerning eye. I barely noticed Chris Jones until that last crucial play when he took the wrong route, basically, and allowed Herbert to get outside. I really didn't notice him do anything substantial during the game.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Jones' pressure percentage was 8.8%, which is not a high percentage for him. Karlaftis was credited with 4 pressures, which really surprised me because I did not see him frequently. But what really stands out is, Next Gen Stats keeps track of quick pressures, which is like under 3 seconds you're there, because Karlaftis has 4 pressures, but only one's a quick pressure. So the other are one of the things we heard about him when he was drafted. He's a guy who'll keep churning, who'll, won't quit until the play is over. And so I think the pressure rate's a little bit misleading there because none of these guys had a lot of quick pressures except their running backs and defensive backs. Shamari Connor has 1, Trey McDuffie's got 1, Drew Tranquil's got 2, Nick Bolton's got 1. Their defensive line only gets 3 the entire game. Well, that tells you these two topics, like you said, Blair, are related. Like, they can't get quick pressure without blitzing. Can they really afford to blitz right now? Right.
Okay, is it possible for Patrick Mahomes to have a game that's flies under the radar a little bit? I kind of think he did. I thought he played pretty well in this. He said kind of continuing his preseason, the few series that he got in the 3 preseason games. He, like the rest of the offense, was unraveled a little bit by the injury to Xavier Worthy, and then it didn't help that Hollywood Brown dropped the ball. It would have been a first down.
Down 10 right there
Yep.
on the money.
But the Chiefs ended up scoring on their final 5 possessions, and Mahomes made a couple of highlight reel plays that'll be maybe on his top 10.
He took it over like an NBA player. I think I tweeted that out, and I think there's only a couple players in the NFL that can do that. Josh Allen, Lamar, they went after each other on Sunday. A handful of others, maybe Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, if you want to say that. But he took over and was doing it with his legs. He made another one of these horizontal passes that you shouldn't be able to make. And I think, going back to the defense a little bit related to this, I think that's why you saw Andy Reid's angry face and Drew Tranquil lose his mind, because I think they were a play away from another one of these signature Mahomes moments. They weren't down by 7. They were down by 6. So the Chiefs get the ball back for 2 minutes and no timeouts. And all of a sudden, you might see them steal this game all because of Patrick Mahomes' absurd third quarter and fourth quarter play. But it went how it went. Chris Jones cut inside. It seemed like he was supposed to contain and didn't do so. And you only get one of these under the radar, as you described, Mahomes games, when this would have been another one of those Mahomes games.
For some reason he was off kilter in the first half a little bit, and I think, okay, I don't remember what happened on that third down play where Kelsey and Worthy collided, but it wasn't complete, right? Did he get the ball away? It was just,
Well, it tended to. Yeah, he did. It was supposed to go to Worthy. It was on.
Yeah.
It was on the.
so you get that, and you get a Hollywood Brown drop, and suddenly he's 2 out of his first 7 instead of 4 out of his first 7. They failed on their first 7 third down conversions. Maybe that looks a little different if you have 1 or 2 of those plays connect. So it looked like he was off kilter, but then, and Sam really dug into this. I mean, he just imposed his will on the game, or as Pete put it, like, an NBA guy taking over. And a lot of that really was on the seeking out contact on that 15-yard run. I felt exactly like you guys did, though. I thought it was over when they were down 2 scores, and then when they quickly got down the field. Again, that throw, let's not underrate that throw to Hollywood Brown down the field too, because he's being flushed out of the pocket right away. I think, was that Mack chasing him through Kingsley?
4th down too.
Yeah, 4th and 7, 4th and 10.
Yeah.
And
Reminded me of the pass he made to Tyreek Hill against the Ravens that year.
Yeah. Or the one of the Browns is one reminded.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I was thinking of the Ravens one too, except for that was with coverage.
Yeah.
But at that point, when Buckner makes that, you're thinking, how many times have we shaken our heads in the press box and thought, I don't know how, but chances are they're going to pull this out. They had to like their chances when it came to that third and 13 for the Chargers.
Also on offense, I thought the new left side of the line held up pretty well. Josh Simmons and Kingsley Suamataia, except where was the push in the running game? Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt really never got their motors running, and then you had to throw a bunch in the second half to keep up with the Chargers. I was a little disappointed in. we're supposed to see better push in the running game from the offensive line. We didn't see it.
I think the Chiefs abandoned the run, and it looked like, I think because they threw the ball deep 3 times in the game, that people will say that there was a more concerted effort, but those deep passes did not actually replace the behind the line of scrimmage throws and, the 3 and 4 yard quick outs. They just replaced the intermediate game, which is not really revitalizing the offense. I thought the offense looked quite similar to a lot of the games we saw a year ago, which wasn't good enough. But to excuse them a little bit, the game plan had to change when Xavier Worthy was out, because he is without a doubt the best receiver they had available going in to that game. And so I don't know that we should be thinking we're going to see what we saw from the Chiefs offense based on that game. But what we saw from the Chiefs, which they did score the final 5 drive, that's an oddity about the way their offense played, because I don't know who outside of Patrick Mahomes should have walked away from that game offensively and thought they played pretty well.
10 carries from the running backs just not enough, really, for any team. And I think in these games where the Chiefs offense sputters, they always get away from the run. I mean, it is a consistent thing where you take a look down at the score sheet and it's in the single digits or just over 10. And I think when they're their best, it's a mix of run and pass. And yeah, they abandoned it for sure. I think in the first quarter, when you lose your best pass catcher, as you were describing, Sam, things have to change, and you could tell that it just wasn't working. Made the right adjustments in the second half to at least give themselves a chance. But again, you need to see a little bit more of giving an opportunity for it. And make your pick. It doesn't matter to me, Isaiah Pacheco or Kareem Hunt. One of them to get in a rhythm and ride that player.
Because it's not like the passing game was rolling. I mean, the first 17 Patrick Mahomes pass attempts had 57 yards. And a lot of those are 0. And, 2nd and 10 has become a lot different for this team than it used to be.
Okay, so a year ago when Rashee Rice was lost for the season with his knee injury against the Chargers, the Chief went out and got DeAndre Hopkins. Is there a similar move this year for the Chiefs with Worthy potentially out for an extended period?
I think there is. Rashee Rice in week 7.
Okay, it's not before that.
I don't think it would make any sense at all. I don't think you know what you have until Rashee Rice comes back. And Rashee Rice is a better wide receiver than you had on the roster at any point last year. And let's face it, these offensive moves that they've made mid-year have not really worked out for them in a meaningful way. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins had 3 catches in the playoffs in 4 games. 3 games.
He had a better catch last night than he ever had for the Chiefs.
But again, that was just his one catch
of
the game, because I think he was probably covered most of the game, like we saw him cover a lot in Kansas City. So I don't think it makes a ton of sense, to be honest.
I think one of the problems you run into, though, is the timeline. I mean, it is September 8th. Much like Major League Baseball, teams want to know if they, for lack of a better term, stink or don't stink. And, even after a dud like Miami had against the Indianapolis Colts, they may be going in and say this was one game. Now you get 3, 4, 5 weeks from now and a team is 0-5, 1-4. Maybe you see that. Like when they made the Hopkins move, it was pretty clear Tennessee wasn't going anywhere last year. And so I just think it's just tough to make a move this soon and see a team give up on themselves this soon.
Here's the trick, though, a little bit. It's a little bit of the schedule matter here. And I don't know that this should or shouldn't change how they look at this, but between playing host to the Eagles this week, playing the Ravens here 2 weeks later, playing the Lions here 2 weeks after that, without a little jolt on the offense, you have to wonder if they could get in a bit of a hole schedule. This is pretty front-loaded. I mean, those are three of the teams you'd expect to have a chance at the Super Bowl.
And we're talking about a Chiefs team that right now is looking up at 3 other teams in the AFC West.
So last part of that epic.
Exactly. All right, great conversation as always with Chiefs beat writer Pete Sweeney and columnists Vahe Gregorian and Sam McDowell. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'll have some final thoughts on college football and soccer. Welcome back to SportsBeat KC. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. And I've got some final thoughts from a busy sports weekend, starting with the border war. Missouri defeated Kansas in a renewal of this ancient rivalry 42-31 on Saturday before a frenzied crowd in Columbia. It was the first meeting between these teams since 2011, and here's hoping the series becomes an annual affair, as it was when KU and MU were members of the Big 12, the Big 8, and all the conferences before that. I was really impressed with the play of both teams and their quarterbacks, Bo Pribula of Missouri and Jalen Daniels of Kansas. With what they showed me Saturday, both teams are in store for winning seasons, at least. Missouri plays Louisiana in a non-SEC game on Saturday at 3 p.m. Kansas has the week off and resumes with a home game against West Virginia on September 20th. Kansas State lost unbelievably last weekend at home to Army. And what do I mean by that? The Wildcats entered the game as a 17-point favorite and looked like the better team when they had the ball, but that was the problem. Army held the ball for more than 40 minutes. They ran 82 plays to Army's 46. Our K-State beat writer, Kellis Robinette, had this note: Kansas State punted to Army with 11 minutes and 18 seconds remaining in the third quarter, and the Wildcats didn't get the ball back until 2 minutes and 52 seconds remained in the game. How does that happen? Well, in that span, Kansas State returned a kickoff for a touchdown, and then Army recovered an onside kick. So they just kept the ball for pretty much the entire second half. The Wildcats are now 1-2, with each game being decided by a field goal. Look, their ambition of playing in the Big 12 championship game remains alive, but there needs to be a reversal of fortune in Manhattan. Next up for K-State, the Battle of the Wildcats. Kansas State travels to Arizona on Friday in a non-conference game, and that game will be broadcast on Fox. And how about the Kansas City Current? They're coming off a 2-0 victory over Bay FC for their 7th straight shutout victory. Laurel Ivory was in goal for this one after Lorena showed up on the injury sheet last week. The first-place Current improved to 16-2-1, and coach Vladko Andonovski won the 100th game of his professional career. The Current hosts Trinity Rodman and the Washington Spirit in a primetime matchup next Saturday. Kickoff from CPKC Stadium is set for 6:30 p.m. And that's going to do it for us on SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports Podcast. Big thanks to our producers, Randy Mason, Monty Davis, and Suzanne Hogan. To our editors, Jeff Rosen and Scott Chasen. I'm Blair Kirchhoff, and let's do this again soon.